So I was running this hard 2 nights ago, and lo and behold, I was pushing this at about 16 psi, and it ran good for about an hour. I was beating it for almost probably good 2 hours, and just beating the piss out of it. Throwing a little sprinkle here, a little sprinkle there in the laptop, and all of a sudden she felt like she was hurt, and I was like, okay, let me bring it home. I ran 90. Now here's another thing. I just did a compression test on this motor, on this build, gosh, only maybe a week or two ago, and I was at like 150, 160, 170. I don't remember what it was, but I remember thinking it was within 2 psi of each other. Now I have this old compression tester, and it doesn't read all that great, but they were close. But now when I did this, I was at like 90, 115, 90, 120, something like 125 or whatever. So all 4 are just shot. And honestly, I don't know what the heck it is. I would think if you blew a gasket, you might see a difference between 2, but another 2 will be all right. For a head gasket, if I blew some ring lands, it'd be like on 1 piston, maybe, not all 4. So I'm kind of baffled. It is smoking a little bit. I want to say it was white smoke, but I didn't run it. I just let it warm up so I could do the compression test on it before and after warm up, you know. So I did do 2 compression tests on this just recently here. So what I'm gonna do here's the plan. I'm gonna pull the head off. I took the head off. I'm gonna take I got the rocker arm assembly I got ready to take off here. Once I pop that off, let the valves sit, and I'm gonna test it by, you know, putting water in there, see if they leak out, because here's what I found. That's the new gasket. This is the old gasket. Okay, so this is top side like that, and there's nothing visible here that would alarm anybody. It all looks in pretty good shape, a little dirty still, but okay. And you look back here, blowout, 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 blowout. So if you remember, I believe it was like 90, 115, 90, 125, somewhere around those ranges. So if we flip these over, so this would be like 125. Bam. This would be like 90. Bam. This would be like 115, and it'd be like 90. Or whatever have you. I guess, you know, it doesn't make a big bit of difference. But they all blew out on the intake side. Now there's something I forgot to mention in the last clip, and that was that when I set the timing on here, first off, a few days ago I set the timing, and I thought, man, this thing just doesn't feel like it has the punch it should have down low. And I looked online, it seems I'm not the only one that had an issue with this, but here's the deal. See these Y8, I believe they're on the Y7 as well, timing marks right here and right here. And then you have the little dashes. Let's I'm not gonna be able to turn that, but anyways, if you have, that's up, so there's a dash here and a dash here. If I line that up perfectly there and right there, and I get that crank pulley down there to line up, you know, just like you're supposed to, right there, through the crosshairs, and well, they're not circled around here, but there'll be a little dash here, and then 3 dashes here for your 10, 12, and 14 degrees timing. The first dash is your top dead center off to the right. And if I line it up perfect, and I go and I tighten it up real good on the exhaust side, and I line up here, it's a tooth difference than if I just do it from deck height. Because if I go deck height, you'll notice that this is a little further down, this is a little further higher. If I go deck height, this thing is retarded a tooth, but if I go according to those, it's advanced a tooth. So I've been riding around with this thing forever with the timing belt set at deck height. And like I said, I was messing with this and I was throwing some time in it. I said, what the heck, man, this thing just doesn't feel punchy down low no matter what I throw at it. I mean, it didn't feel too doggy, but obviously going, you know, being back a tooth, it's going to feel like that. So I retimed it, and when I did that, you know, I set it towards the markings on the case, and it was forward a tooth. Then it felt great. I mean, the whole the whole power band felt like it got a nice punch to it just with the same tune. So I started playing with the tune there. Now, here's the deal. I never took this timing belt cover off. I just tightened that bolt, loosened it. And I tell you what, there must have been a hang up in that spring, because if I'm not mistaken, when I got ready to take this off, I was talking to Hunter Tuned, and I told him how it blew out on the intake side. He goes, did the timing jump? And I said, it's funny you should mention that, because I didn't tell him anything about the timing belt and me adjusting it or turning it to. They didn't say nothing. So kudos to him for asking that and, you know, figuring, hey, what's up with the intake side? And then he was saying I might have some bent valves too, so that's why I'm going to check that. But when I checked this, when I zeroed out down there to top dead center on the crank, it did look like this thing had jumped a tooth even more forward. It turned even more forward because these lines, these markings didn't line up at all, and it was way far away from the deck height then at that point. So it very possibly could have jumped the tooth, and this is what all this is coming from. It jumped the tooth, and because that thing wasn't tight, and I went to go feel that, and it wasn't even tight. Now here's the deal, and I didn't mention this like I said in the last clip. What I ended up doing is I ended up pulling on the, I retimed it and I did deck height at that point, because I figured, well, I know at deck height when I compression tested this that it was at like 160 across the board within a couple, or like I said, I don't remember exactly what the numbers were, but they were up there pretty good and within like 2 psi of each other, like I said. So when I retimed it, I reached down there with a long needle nose and I pulled that tension up. I obviously had the exhaust side super tight like this, and then I reached down right in there where that spring is at with a needle nose, and I pulled up on that arm, the tensioner arm, so this side would get tight too. And that way there wasn't any question of that being tight. And I fired it up and I got it warmed up, did another compression test. I still had the same numbers, so unfortunately I was like, oh well, I'm gonna have to pull the head. And like I said, hopefully I didn't fry anything. So that there is where we're getting at here. We have essentially blown out the whole intake side of the head gasket. Alright, so we got the rocker arm assembly disassembled. I'm going to go ahead and pour some water in here in just a second, but I did see something I didn't like though. I want to show you guys this. Damn, I need some paper towel around here. You guys can see that. See where it kind of looks like this? It's kind of scuffed up. It don't look smooth. I don't know if that's because of the metal debris that you get from an engine build. Alright guys, I wanted to pause right here for a moment to reflect back on a few things. This footage that I'm editing right now is several months old. A lot has happened. I'll give you a couple clues throughout this little brief discussion while we're looking at this cam journal here. First off, the little bit of history of this car, if you haven't looked at some of the other videos on this channel about this particular Civic here, is when I picked it up, super clean, I picked it up for $200, had a snap timing belt. I assumed at the time, because what I was told is that they had the timing belt job done at a place and they didn't do the water pump, which is true. And if you look at the old video where I show you the side of the timing belt side of the engine, the previous owner decided that instead of fixing the water pump, they were just going to use stop leak in the system, and it peed all over the side of the timing belt side of the engine. It was a huge mess. I assumed that was the end of the story. He had dropped all that stop leak on a timing belt that weakened the timing belt, caused it to snap. He couldn't fix it, so he dumped it for $200, and that's how I got this car. Great car for $200, right? Moving down the road, I did everything. I took the head to the machine shop to make sure it pressure tested, to get the head decked, and it didn't even need it, right? I took it to the machine shop and did all this, and had the valve seals done, and yeah, I did everything on it. All new belts, timing belt, water pump, did all this stuff. All your maintenance stuff, everything. All new radiator hoses, new radiator fan. Pretty much all eBay crap anyway, but anyways. And I drove it as a daily for a while, even took it on a couple road trips out to Pennsylvania and back and down to Wisconsin and all this. So I get about 8,000 miles on it in this middle of winter. My wife's driving it.
going to some spa appointment an hour away, and I'm halfway back home in the middle of a blizzard. The timing belt snaps. So I get up there, tow the car home. Hey, what the heck? Maybe it's because I used one of these $10 eBay timing belts, and maybe that's the reason it took a dump. So I replaced it at that point in time. So, well, I'm not going to deal with it. The whole theme of this channel is to see what you can get away with in these engines, right? Well, I checked the head. I did checked it myself, the old-fashioned way, checking water in the ports and all that. Didn't have any leak, no bent valves, nothing. Everything was smooth. So I threw a new head gasket in it, swapped all the fluids, obviously. Threw a Gates Racing timing belt, the blue belts, Thought, cool, this is cool. I'm going to have a bulletproof timing belt on here. I'm not going to have to worry about that no more. Moving forward, I go ahead, have no troubles for a while. I move forward and I do the rods and pistons. And beyond the scope of what I'm going to get into in this video, moving to future videos I'm going to edit here soon, is I blow the Gates timing belt. Now, if you notice in this video, I'm going to get to this conclusion that these cam journals right here and the cam itself have all this abrasiveness on it. The cam hasn't actually locked up completely, but what I think has been happening here all along is the previous owner had this happen. It locked up. He didn't figure it out. When I sent this all to the machine shop, they didn't catch it there either. I looked at it, maybe never noticed it up until this point. And even when I shot video of this and I'm noticing this, I said, let's send it again. Well, you're going to see in future videos that this is causing a lot more headaches. And as of right now, I'm going to give you where the car is at right now here a couple days before New Year's 2019. The car still runs, still turboed, but it's on factory rods and pistons right now as just a backup daily that doesn't go too far, kind of deal, because this cam and this head are still in there, and I'm looking to change that very soon here, and then I'll be doing a video on that as well. Now, here's the deal. It is my belief that all the problems I'm having aren't my tuning, because here's my thing. And like I say, by the end of this video, I still haven't in this footage come to the conclusion that that's for sure my problem, but why I said like I'm editing this video, and it's like this is what's got to be the issue here. The timing belt snapped when I bought it. I went through an eBay timing belt, a Gates Racing timing belt, and here I am. Let me give you a spoiler to the next video. Blowing a second set of Vitara Pistons. So I'll do a video on that. I'm not going to rehash this whole video into another one again with the second set. Get back to the video here.
But like for instance, this part would be the smooth part, and that would be the broken part. Not the broken, sorry, the scuffed up part. No, all of them are like this, and I'd imagine it has to do with the engine debris. I might pull those rods off and see what I'm dealing with. It's the same thing with that. I mean, it doesn't. Yeah, it almost feels kind of rough. And the camshaft. This feels alright on the cam.
Okay, so this is jumping ahead a little bit from when I pulled the head. I, at this point, had already put the whole engine back together, and I used this gasket that you see right here. It's a $12 composite Amazon gasket. They work fine. I initially thought they were junk because I did blew this gasket later on. I'll get into that in future videos. But again, it had to do with the damn camshaft causing issues. Well, anyways, I ended up I did a compression test on it, and I had the same exact compression with a new head gasket, and the head checked out fine. I did a water test on it, and I ended up pulling out one of the pistons here, and we're going to look at this piston. Actually, I pulled the first one out, and then I loosened up. I took out piston number 2, and then I loosened up piston number 3 there. I think I'm getting ready to pull it here. But, yeah, I had threw this all back together, and without starting it up, I just did a compression test, and it all came back the same exact number. So I said, okay, we must have an issue with the piston rings. Now, here, we're going to take a look at now, this is the first set of Vitaras I have. I'm going to throw a second set in here at the end of this video, but you notice that on this side here, I'm trying to see if this is, there's cracks in the ring lands, and I broke the, I believe the second ring on this. If you can see this here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so there's cracks in the ring lands, and yeah, let's go ahead and jump ahead here and look at the rest of the ring lands from here.
All right, guys, pulled off piston and rod number 2 and 3. Checking the bearings there. They look actually pretty good. I guess you can't tell. Let me see if I can zoom right there. Looks good. And that one looks great. Actually, they both look great. I'm getting ready to pull off the ARP 2000 bolts here for the rods, for the I-beams on here. And we're going to see if we have blown rings and cracked pistons on number 1 and 4 here. So, just waiting for my boy to bring me the gun here.
All right, at this point, I start pulling the caps, or at least breaking them free with the gun, hitting them with my electric ratchet. Now, you don't only want to take them out about 5 or 6 turns of threads. You want to give them a couple taps so that the cap breaks free from the rest of the rod, and then you can pull the caps on. Now, a lot of people might criticize, say, you don't want to do this, you know, especially if you're going to rehone. But you know what? I did this 3 times in this motor. This is the first time. The second time I did it because I had to swap new pistons again. And the third time I did it was just to recheck bearings as where it stands right now. Actually, I think I've done it 4 times. And this is actually a very good way to just knock this out. Even if you want to check your bearings. Say you get your motor built and you get about 500 miles down the road. Man, go ahead and drop the oil, drop the pan. You don't even have to take the head off to do this. It's a little tricky. I have done it once without taking the head off and check the bearings. But it can be done. But, yeah, it's a good way to check the bearings. The last thing you want to do is spin a bearing. You know, if something's wrong, this is a good way to just pull it apart and check it and get it done.
All right, let's see what we got here. This is piston number 4. The bearing looks all right. Let's check the bearing cap. Got little pits on it. Let's see if I did any damage to these. Oh man, look at that. Look at that crackling ring lands. Oh, dude. Yeah, I've seen better days. Well, I guess it could have been worse, right? Okay, well, let's check this bearing. Oh, mother. Alright, so I got all 4 of these pistons out, and all the walls look pretty good. There's nothing in there at all cracked, or all the parts of the crank down there where the rod connects to are looking good. I'm just inspecting them a little bit from up here. I look down below. So yeah, everything looks pretty good. Now I got all 4 out. Here's what's interesting. As you know, the tang here is for the exhaust side, right? So I got them all facing the direction. So these are the intake sides of the pistons here. Check this out. Every single piston. Busted ring land. Oh, let me get this in here. Busted ring lands. There and there. This one doesn't actually have a destroyed piston ring. Okay, but the ring lands are shot on the intake side again. Same with this. Busted ring lands. Look at that. This one, the ring itself, no, ring itself didn't survive. I don't know if I turned it around that side and that's why it's on the other side there, but either way. Same with this. Ring lands. And busted rings obviously too. Okay, piston number 4. Busted ring land. Same side, intake side. Like I said, exhaust side tangs. All 4 shot.